What is up? This is the Working Investor. In this video, we're going to talk about high yield dividend growth investing. And we're going to model out two different portfolios that are $50,000 each. One of them is going to be a ultra high yield NAV eroding portfolio, generating $3,775 in income monthly, which I call the bait and switch portfolio. And we're going to compare it to the Fire 2 portfolio that pays out just about $1,126 a month, with assets that have a proven track record of growing. And we'll go over the pros and cons of high yield dividend growth investing and talk about some kind of balanced strategy if you want to have your cake and eat it too. As always, nothing here is financial, tax, legal advice, or roasted money bucket advice. This is purely for fun and entertainment purposes only. Let's get into the video. Please see all my disclaimers. For whatever reason, when it comes to high yield or ultra high yield dividend investments, people lost all their brain cells at the door, and people don't think of proper portfolio design. And people just look at the entry price of the dividend yield and forget about everything else. Let's go ahead and look at the portfolio. Let's say you want to have $1,000 a month and you want to be diversified in 10 different assets. So you're going to put $5,000 approximately into these 10 assets. And this is not financial advice. I'm just giving you an example here. So 5,000 in EGI, GPIQ, GPTY, QDVO, blocks, KQQQ, SOXY, EGGS, TDAC, and WPay. So you're pretty much diversified. I think it's about a 10% position in each of these holdings. So here you can see the percentages. And if you go down, you can see the annual estimated distributions. These are all estimated from all of these funds. So you can see here the yield on cost is 22.45%. The dividend yield is 22.38%. And this is just a starting position. And I want to get your eyes over here. Yearly income. So now this is yearly income with no dividends reinvested. And I wanted to ask you a question. What are you noticing in the trend year over year over year with the income? Not reinvesting a dime, keeping all this income and using it to retire in your retirement to enjoy your life. So I'm sure you guys noticed that by doing nothing, this is dividend growth investing, your income projection is going to be going up year over year over year over year to keep up with inflation. This is just a model. This is not telling, obviously dividends are unreliable and they can always vary, but in general, one would be reasonable to expect that would happen, but it may not always be the case. So you hit the goal of the $1,000 with a $50,000 portfolio per month. Now we're moving over to the bait and switch portfolio, and you're like, on first glance, you're like, oh my God, I've tripled my goal, almost quadrupled my goal. I have, for the same $50,000, I'm making $3,700 a month, which sounds, mind-boggling. The yield on cost is 126%. Well, I just started the position, let's say today. The dividend yield is 125%. This is extremely sustainable, right? I would imagine. And this would bring in the $50,000 to bring in $41,000 a year projected, right? But now I want to point your eyes to the yearly income. What are you noticing? The best yearly income is the first year, and then it just goes downhill from there because the growth has a negative 38.44% growth. Again, this is based on the computational skills of Div Tracker app. And of course, it's just a model, but just gives you an idea. Not sure how accurate it is, but so you have 10 different assets, and they're all $5,000 each approximately. And each of them represent a 10% position. Another thing you're noticing is most of the items in here are single stock, because a lot of the ultra high dividend payers are single stocks. And a lot of people who go into these things put a lot of money and a lot of faith into single stocks. Not just that. Notice that I have NVYY from Granite Shares in the bottom right. And notice that I have about 5,000 in this portfolio. It's not me, just the model, NVDY. And you're like, oh my God, it's the same underlying. Well, yeah, people tend to have, exposure to single stock, not just exposure to single stock, but multiple different assets. They'll buy the round hill version and the yield max version and the ground and share version, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They're putting a lot of money into a single stock. Yes, there's a little bit of a variance in the strategy, but it's still correlated to the single stock. So, but unfortunately, this is how people are investing. They're taking on massive amount of risk. And you could see over time that it's going to go down and down. It's going to go down, projected, based on the payments, and this is all based on the payments being the same, just the growth going down, to $22,000 a month eventually in a few years. Versus the Fire 2 portfolio is going to go up to $21,000 and continue going up, and you didn't have to reinvest anything. Some people who feel like have a terminal illness and they feel like they're not going to be around much longer, they're just looking at the very short term, 1 to 5 years. I could totally see a use case for the high yield extreme NAV erosion, and they could be very happy with that. And people who have a longer horizon or looking for generational wealth are looking for the entryway. Now, I know what all of you guys are going to ask me, but what about the compounding growth of the dividends? And yes, you do have a point. There is a feature here I could show you. So if I just toggle and go to drip and I type drip on, it's going to be mesmerizing. There's even a feature here you could take off for taxes as well. It's cool. I'm not sponsored by them. I really like this app. So here you could see the very, dividend growth investing portfolio. You could see that yearly income goes up, to $120,000 if you want to reinvest the income. But when you reinvest the income, that choice is completely up to you. You can use all the income and you're going to still get increasing income, or you can reinvest it if you don't need it, or reinvest whatever you don't need and get that thing continuously growing. But you have all the flexibility in the world because you're growing supposedly. Obviously there's market conditions that can, cause different problems, but the way it's set up, it's dividend growth or high yield dividend growth. But if you want to see the dividend reinvestments of the other one, your eyes are going to explode. So looking at the bait and switch portfolio, yes. So it says here that the dividend reinvestments is going to go up to almost $800K a year. Now, the thing is that this assumes that the dividend payments are going to be the same. That's the problem. So because it's modeling as of today, the problem is that the dividends go down and down and down in value. It tends to go down as the price goes down. So I don't know if this is actually true and read into it. I know people are plugging this thing into Snowball Analytics and just drooling over these charts, and I'm plugging it into Div Tracker. And yeah, I also was pretty enticed. Hey, if this is true, then I'm the biggest idiot not going all in on the ultra high dividend yield. I'll be the first to admit it if this is actually true. You know what is a good measuring stick to actually see if this thing is working? Let's look at total return. And I mentioned this in my previous videos. This is total return of TSYY from Grand Shares, which has 140 something percent dividend yield. I'm comparing it to Tesla from Yield Max, a cover call ETF, and I'm comparing it to Tesla, the underlying. And you can see total return, even if you reinvested all of it in real life situation modeling, you're actually negative 8.04%. So even with everything reinvested, I guess, if you picked good timings, when to buy it, and you're not as bad as negative 8.04%, but you reinvested everything thinking about that glorious, Snowball Analytics model or the DivTrack model that I have on my DivTrack calculator. You're drooling, but with everything reinvested, you have a net loss in your wealth of 8.04% when you could have just had Tesla, the underlying, if you had that appetite for single stock holdings, and you would have had a net wealth increase of 11.18%. This is year to date. TSYY came out the 18th. It was started trading on the 18th of December 2024. So we're just missing maybe a week or two of data, but it's almost since inception. And Tesla, I'm not cherry picking the dates. It's just easy to go year to date. Tesla would have given you a net wealth increase of 12.43%. So that's what I'm trying to tell you, that sometimes the modeling is not always correct. And this is the sad fact of life. Look around you. Look at the grocery stores you go to. All costs are going up. Basic consumer staples is going up. Car insurance is going up. Housing is going up. Education is going up. Everything you can think of almost is going up, right? And how comfortable will you be in your retirement when your income is going down? Because when you're using your income, you don't have the money to reinvest. And you saw there's some assets that have shown, we have over 10 months of data, that even if you reinvested everything, it didn't take one bloody cent, you would still be down a net loss of 8% in your entire wealth. So how comfortable would you be in retirement when you're going to the grocery store trying to go look for some dividend change in your pocket, and the cost of milk and bread and everything else is just going up? So everything is going up and your income is going down. I would not feel comfortable in that scenario. I think any rational, logical person would not feel comfortable having funds that are going down in price and going down in distributions. There are some that sometimes the excess of the distribution surpasses the price, which I agree, that's a total return, but you have to do some kind of reinvesting strategy to do that. But that would make me anxious. Like if there were two jobs out there, and you guys all know these type of jobs, right? You have these jobs where they start you off at an entry salary and they really grow you. They help you, they give you good hours, they educate you, and they promote you, and they give you great benefits and maybe even a pension. I don't know, there still exists. And they really want you to be happy, grow, and flourish. And your income and your benefits is just going up. You have a happy life, work-life balance, happy family, happy everything. You're just quality of life and income is going up. Then you have these places, they pay you a crazy amount of money, maybe 3 times the market price, whatever they would pay. But they want to work you to the bone. They're going to grind you down to the bone. It's like a revolving door. You have to travel like 2 hours each way to work. So you're falling apart. Your health is falling apart. Your relationship is falling apart. Your spiritual life is falling apart. Your car is falling apart. And they tell you every year, we're going to cut your salary every year. We're going to work you really hard. There's NAV erosion. So there's salary, there's health erosion, and then there's the dividend going down. So there's salary cuts. I don't know. Maybe somebody will take that job for a year or two and get the heck out of there and bail. And then you have but the other one, that they're very nice and they care about their people and they want to grow you as part of the family. That's the kind of job that people would stay a long time and they would do very well with their career. So, you want to ask yourself, what kind of funds do you want to have? Do you want to be stressed over? You want these funds to decline? I'm not picking on every single thing. You could see a lot of people like to have ULTY or YMAX, and they have a massive price depreciation, but their total return, well, it looks like actually YMAX is outperforming ULTY this time. YMAX has outperformed year over year, total return QQQ, but and ULTY so far has outperformed. But I remember ULTY was just ahead of YMAX. But if you go ahead and look year over year, just on price return, you see that they're going down in value. So some assets, I'm not saying they're all the same, but some assets go down in value, but it's a little bit stressful for me. And I'll be honest, I do have, as you guys know, still have a sizable position in YMAX, about a 10% position. It used to be 60 or 50 or 60. So at least I came to my senses a little bit. This is my personal take. But it's kind of stressful that is the dividends going to be enough to capture, and make up for the decline in the price? You know what I mean? And the people in ULTY, I feel for you. You know what I mean? Is the dividends, it went down 50% in price. And I'm not surprised because ULTY had an 80% dividend distribution. They do have a historically 50% decline. So their total return is about 30%, more or less. But, you have to hope, it's still stressful. So some declining funds, they kind of make up for it, but it's still kind of stressful for me. I don't think you have to be a purist and only pick growth or only pick high yield. Some people are, and I'm kind of leaning a little bit more on the dividend, high yield, dividend growth. I do have some, I have YMAX, which is still a NAV decliner. I look at the big picture. I think, people, you can have both extremes. You can have people in the middle. They kind of mesh both things together. I did make a video about how to kind of stabilize ULTY. You got to work your magic. You have to work it. Let's just be honest. These NAV decliners that still have some outperformance with certain indexes, you still have to work it. And I made a video talking about, potentially, if reinvesting it a certain amount, calculating how much to reinvest. And I made a video that an easy way to do it. I mean, you could just, let's say, put in not financial advice, but one of my strategies, you could put in, let's say, 10K. And if it goes down to 8, just keep reinvesting until you get back to the 10K. It's very simple. Keep your equity there. And then if the yield remains 80% yield, you should get a stable amount if you keep your equity there. You should, but I don't know what's going to happen in the future. There's other ways you compare it with you could balance it out with, mesh it around with other funds. So if a lot of things are going up and one thing is going down, maybe, it could kind of counteract, so there's a lot of different ways you could watch. I'll put a link to that video, how to balance it. Again, I'm not a purist. I'm leaning more on the high yield dividend growth. I may cross over fully. I may, but I understand both sides, and I've come from one side and I flipped over to the other. Well, I've actually come from the high yield dividend growth and flipped over to the craziness, and then I'm kind of going back to my mean reversion. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoy. I hope you guys have a wonderful trading week. This is the Work Investor over and out. Be well.